You're right, it's Chris. And I thought, so basically, I had this really weird dream 2 nights ago, and I've been doing a bit of dream recalling, like writing it down. Especially when I have like a really weird dream, I tend to write it down so that I can remember it and try and analyze it. So I'm going to read out my account, and I'm going to try and analyze, with whatever knowledge I've managed to acquire over my 37 years of life. The dream. So, like, I do read into psychology. I'm interested in psychology. I'm an armchair philosopher and psychologist, but I guess it might be quite interesting just as a recording of the stream, and yeah, just for in terms of just doing dream analysis in general, right? But anyway, so the dream went as I'll read the written account as accurately as possible, but I'll probably interject with some more visual sort of like things I remember as well. Anyway, I am in an insane asylum. I am visited by my friend Matt. I am convulsing and I'm dragged in the corridor as I collapse several times. Now, this was a very disorientating state. So it was like, that's how it's, from what I can remember anyway. I was like convulsing, I was being dragged along. It's a bit like that scene in Jacob's Ladder where he's getting dragged along an insane asylum and it's just all unsafe and it's absolutely derangement. And then I arrive in a waiting room, so it settles down a bit. There's a woman just across sitting down on the seat who, from what I remember, she looked a bit annoyed slash distressed, I guess. But then she sort of gets up, started dancing around, being dancing erotically, like an erotic dancer, really. And then she started coming towards me, and then she started like dancing erotically near me, and she basically went down on my lap. It was like a lap dance, really. So I just gone through this asylum, had this horrible, weird experience, and then a lap dance. It was like at the end of it, really. And then suddenly, my friend, one of my best mates, was in the dream, and he puts on a song by Echo and the Bunnymen. As far as I can remember, probably what's that one? Behind blue eyes, I saw you, so cruelly you kissed me. And then he goes, "This is the right song for this moment." So then I nod and have a cigarette, and it's sort of like a cigarettes after sex moment, I guess, right? But not that I was having sex with this woman; it was just like I was getting pulled or whatever. Anyway, then sort of go outside. It's this like kaleidoscopic world, a bit like the area where I live, which is quite, trees. It's Cheshire, right? So it's like very neat, naturalistic. But there's all sorts of fireworks going on, explosions, some shooting and stuff. And then I find myself in a sort of Nam situation. So I'm with a patrol of some men in some woods and don't know why we're there. Then we come across a group of boys, probably about 10 to 12, 13 years old. And this is where it gets really dark, actually. Trigger warning. There's a bit of violence now. One of the boys got a knife and started scalping this poor unicorn. From what I remember, it was a unicorn. And it was very vivid because it was like scalping and cutting the head of this unicorn off. And it's bleeding all this blue blood spurting out. And it was horrible. It was horrible. It was like a nightmare at that point. So our leader was Frank Drebin from Police Squad and Naked Gun for some reason. So I was like watching all this, was horrified. So I just shouted to him like, "Quit! They're scalping a unicorn!" So we stopped them doing it. We were all like soldiers basically. And then Frank started lecturing him. He's like, "What are you doing? Like, you can't go around scalping unicorns." And then one of the men was like a Vietnam veteran for some reason. So he goes, and this is exactly how I remember it: "You can't just do whatever you want, you little punk. I served in Vietnam. And you think you can just go around scalping on unicorns, you little shit. And then that happened, and then, well, whatever. And then the next bit I can remember is William Dafoe, like Last Testament of Christ type William Dafoe was there. And I kissed him on the forehead, which is like, I guess it's very, there's a lot of religious significance in that, I guess. And then he started going, ah, and then he started rambling on about like philosophers coming before their time is right, come before their time is right. Then I just woke up with a jolt, and it was just a bit disturbing dream, basically. Anyway, onwards with some sort of analysis of this weirdness. So there's a few things going on there. There's obviously a violent subtext, or very not even subtext. It's a very violent dream, right? There's authority figures in there. You got Frank Drebin from Police Squad. So there's a police element, so that's authority, conflict, war. A bit of a feeling maybe of being an outsider, or having been dragged through an asylum, a loss of control, anxiety, the woman in the waiting room. She was, so obviously there's a sexual element probably to the dream too. Some sort of frustration. Well, obviously, I'm not averse to that. Everyone experiences sexual frustration, possibly some sexual frustration element to it, but it's more the overarching theme seems to be, more than the lap dance, which was a probably pleasurable interlude, to be honest, in the dream. More of it seemed to be focused on this unicorn, maybe in some respects too. But then also it's weird because at the end there was this like sort of like Christ-like William Dafoe who was saying about philosophers and how they are not in time, right, or they're before their time or anything like that. So maybe in some respects also it represents an anxiety about feeling out of place, feeling like I don't belong. Obviously the Lord of the Flies / element with the young boys, and so maybe in some respects it represents a feeling out of place. I think that's probably the main thing I'd say. Analysing it myself, my own subconscious, would be the main thing that's strange about that dream, I suppose, apart from obviously scalping the unicorn, which is horrendous. Unicorns obviously represent something mystical, magical, so it's a sort of corruption of nature. I mean, a war itself is that, right? So it's like so maybe I don't know. I don't think it's particularly premonition, right? But obviously, that would be a ridiculous assertion to make, but there seems to be that element to it about how it's a perversion of nature's way, maybe something like that, of scalping a unicorn and all that. It's a terrible thing. Unicorns don't exist, obviously, but just as a symbol. And that was the thing that stuck in my mind the most, was that the blue blood coming from the unicorn's head. Anyway, what else? I mean, obviously, like I think the first part was like me feeling like an outsider, then a bit of release just from because my mate Scott came and played the music after I was getting some sexual enjoyment basically, and then that's comfort, I guess, and then it's going out into this horrible unknown world which is crazy and chaotic, like I imagine a war would be. I've never been in one. And then there's like sort of inner male violence of the gangs of boys torturing animals and stuff. And then, philosopher William Dafoe maybe represents a way out of that, I guess. I mean, obviously I kissed him on the forehead, so that has two. It obviously has a homoerotic context, maybe, but also it's a bit like the traditional Jesus Christ stuff, which I'm not free of the baggage of Christianity. It still exists in my head, even though I'm not a Christian. So I don't know. It's a bit mixed up, but that's some thoughts on it. Yeah, I find that sort of thing interesting, doing dream analysis. I just had a coffee, so I thought it'd be a good opportunity to just do it. Well, having heard my retelling of the dream, what thoughts would you have on it? If you're a dream analyst, or maybe especially if you're more of a experienced, a proper professional, that'd be interesting to hear. Right.